The following episode may contain spoilers for the game Frosthaven.
Welcome to episode 15 of our board gaming podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm Gaz, and I finally get my chance to be your host. And joining me is a man who is our resident in-house drifter DJ, our man who always finds his miscard at the best opportunities for the table, and a man who loves to put me on the spot with a sassy dig at the start of every episode, Daddy. Say hi, Daddy.
Hi, Daddy, and I already hate this.
See, it's not as easy as it seems, is it?
No, it's not at all. This is weird.
It is. But coming at you as host, this thing's going to be wild. So I was going to say it would be uncensored, but it's still going to be censored. So anyone who's getting excited about swear words, sorry, you have to subscribe to our OnlyFans for that one.
Oh.
So, but today's episode will actually run a bit differently, other than me kind of being the host. We did a few episodes ago a little bit of an interview with myself, so it's weird me saying that we did an interview with me, but I was
Full
part
of
of
yourself.
that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I feel like it's just the me show at the moment. But that's not what this episode's going to be. It's actually going to be about Deddy. So we didn't get a chance to play this week, and what we thought was it's a really good chance to dive into Deddy, get him really kind of flustered, ask him some curly questions because he has no idea what I'm going to ask. But also get him to talk about the drifter a little bit because he's had a chance to explain that as we go through, but only in dribs and drabs as we do each scenario. So it'd be cool to be able to deep dive into that a little bit more and get his feeling 5-6 levels in. So
Crushing weight and continuous health, I think.
done. Interview over.
That's
like
right.
that's pretty much that's it. Thanks for joining us. This has been another podcast. Enjoy that, and we'll see you next week, right?
Yes, pretty much.
So yeah, no, but I mean, all of my questions are going to be, so when you don't play Crushing Weight, how do you find X? What's your favorite non-Crushing Weight card? So just be prepared.
Yeah, it doesn't exist, but anyway, I'm looking forward to picking one at random and just seeing what happens.
Exactly. So yeah, if you want to hear me throw all those curly questions at Deddy, stick around. And this will either be terribly spectacular or spectacularly terrible. Like one of those two, but it's going to be a ride. So just before we kick off though, we did want to announce the name of our boat, because in our last episode, we talked about that we had finally built a boat. Other than creating fire, we now have discovered sea travel, and part of that process in Frosthaven is to name it. So we did send out the call to the masses to say, hey, what can we name it, with the one caveat that it couldn't be Bodie McBoatface. Now, we did get a lot of votes for Bodie McBoatface, right? So thanks for everybody. We really appreciated that. But Daddy, do you want to share what we landed on that was the most appropriate?
Yeah, so the name that we chose came from Alex on Instagram. He actually messaged me with a suggestion, and the one he gave me that I really liked and actually told Gaz was The Bookshelf. So our boat is called The Bookshelf.
I love it. We're going to be indestructible. Nothing bad could ever unsinkable.
That's right.
I don't want to curse us, but if they'd named the Titanic The Bookshelf, no movie.
No.
Right? James Cameron would have to come up with a different idea.
Yeah, exactly. And what happens when we smash the champagne against it?
But the whole world explodes.
That's
right. So yeah, no, looking forward to that. So thank you. Is it Alex? Is it just Alex? And you were saying he is on Instagram, or is it Alex on Instagram?
No, Alex messaged me on Instagram on Amdirt.
Just Alex. You just got Alex.
He's got a last name, but I'm not going to say that.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. So just like, oh, that's good work. You must have been like the 7th person on Instagram to get just your name, right?
No.
So No worries. Did you have anything to share with anybody or anything else that's happened since last week before I jump into the fun part, which is
No, not really. I will mention that, look, we love being able to sit down and obviously have our Frosthaven sessions every single week, and we very much look forward to that. I had a personal thing, like a personal thing that happened in my life that affected. It actually happened on Monday, so I had to do an emergency call off, which kind of delayed everything, and I just wasn't really thinking about it at the time, but it's fine now. And we were talking about what we were going to do regarding the actual episode, and Gaz was leave it to me. And I didn't quite know what that meant. And now I know what that means. He was just like, just show up. So I had a sneaking suspicion, but no, I'm a little bit worried. And because I am the kind of person that likes to, I'm the kind of person that likes to go in with prep. So I don't have any prep at all. So I'm sort of just looking at Gaz over webcam right now, and I'm not too sure kind of what's coming. I don't have any show notes to look into or anything like that. So it's kind of, it's awkward. It's put me definitely on the spot.
Yeah, and that was the plan. I wanted you to be enough outside your comfort zone that we could get a little bit of the real Deddy, and but I didn't want to throw you so far out that you were drowning.
We don't want too much Deddy.
We don't want what?
Too much Deddy.
we want heaps of Deddy, but I don't want uncomfortable Deddy, right? We want to make sure that you're feeling fine. Because yeah, you're right. It's the opposite. Normally, I go in and just fly by the seat of my pants, and you have everything planned out, but don't share anything with me. And so yeah. It's a good bit of a role reversal.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just while you said you weren't sure what was coming, the other option I had was that you were going to read the entire Frosthaven rulebook out live on podcast. We could post on live. So
yeah, but then someone will probably message me and say I've still got something wrong, and they'll probably correct me and tell me which page. So.
Well, I was actually hoping that when we did it, we learned the rules properly. So that was the other option. But I thought that one might be a bit. We'll save that for next time we can't play.
Yeah, well, I like our version. I guarantee there's people out there who've been listening to us going, and they're just thinking, even they can't watch us play, so they only hear the report, and they're picking up things that we're saying during there. And I wonder how many are sitting there going, I'd like to actually see a game of this just to point out things that they might be doing wrong.
They're like, you realize you have to pick 2 cards, yeah? So, all right. Well, look, let's get into the fun part. Let's start interrogating Deddy. I mean, let's start asking Deddy some easy questions to create really enjoyable conversation.
Sure, go for it.
And dive into you. So let's just start with tell us a little bit about how you got into board gaming.
Yep. So I've been a gamer my whole life from, I don't know, age of 5. Got my first Nintendo Entertainment System, and played a lot of that, and pretty much went from that to a Super Nintendo and gaming and computer and Nintendo 64 and all of that kind of stuff. And I'd always played card games with my Nana. She taught us Rummy, she taught us Yahtzee, and like most people out there, I was always like, oh, you got your Monopoly with your dad, and dad's a bit of a douche, and he always he didn't teach us, how to win or anything like that. He would just stomp us and then just walk off. So my experience with board games was kind of getting beaten up by dad in the board game, and card games with my grandmother. And I didn't really think much of it since, right? And then I went to a friend's house a long time ago, and we're sitting around in his lounge room, me and a bunch of school friends, and he just said, hey, do you want to play a board game? And I kind of looked at him like, really? We're stooping down to that level. There's nothing else that we can do. And he was like, no, let's set something up. I'll set something up for you. Let's play something. And I was just like, you know what, whatever. We've got all afternoon. We're all catching up. And this was about probably 7-8 years ago. I know the game came out in 2014, I think. But he set up a game called Dead of Winter by Plaid Hat Games. And I looked at this thing on the table. It was on a coffee table of all things as he was setting it up. And I was already blown with just the board presence of it, right? It was really, really cool. It's zombie themed. And all of a sudden, I'm no longer leaning back in the armchair. I'm sort of leaning forward like, okay, this is interesting. What's going on? And he started to explain the premise to me and everyone else, because none of us had ever played anything like this, except for him. He has his own group that he does all this with, so he was introducing it to us. And I got my characters, and he's explaining, these are your survivors. This isn't you, but these are your survivors. You're in control of these guys. And here's some dice, and here's a hand of cards, and these are items that you can use for various things. So we're all in this colony. We're all working together. Here's a secret mission objective. And I'm like, what do you mean? There's so much text and so much reading and flavor and all of that. And I was really quite intrigued. And then the part came where he's like, everyone's got a secret objective. One of us might be a betrayer. And their whole thing is to sabotage our whole thing. But there may not be one in the game. And the game just may be wrecking us. So I'm trying to comprehend everything that's going. And I love zombies and horror and all that kind of stuff in video games. So the idea of that translating into a board game was already blowing my mind. And then it was like, cool, this is how the game works, but we'll just get started. All right, what do you want to do? And I was just like, well, what do you mean? He was like, well, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, the whole concept of gaming to me was always, it's your turn, roll some dice, move your piece, that's it. And I was like, you mean I can go anywhere? Yes, you can go anywhere. Go to the police station, grocery store, you can fight some zombies here, you can do whatever. And that whole thing blew my mind. So we played this game out. And I remember going through all of these situations where people weren't contributing to the crisis, and do they have the card or do they not? And I was just getting more and more my brain was blowing up. And then when the whole thing finished, none of us was the betrayer and we almost lost. But I walked away from it going, that was incredible. That was a board game that was incredible. I immediately bought it. It was the first modern hobby board game that I've ever bought. I immediately bought it and I went and told my gaming friends like you and Mark and a whole bunch of others. I said, guys, we have to catch up because I'll need to show you this. And in the meantime, while waiting for that to happen, when Dead of Winter arrived, I jumped online, looked at Tabletop Simulator. I taught myself. First I Googled it, board games. And it was like BGG came up. I was like top 100 games out of thousands of these things. And I've just gone, oh my God, there's a whole world out there. So I did my own research. The next game that I ended up buying was a game called Eldritch Horror, which the whole concept of a cooperative board game was blowing my mind. And yeah, the rest is honestly history. That's literally how I started. It was Dead of Winter into Eldritch Horror into, I don't know, I've got 800 now, I think.
So you're going to name them all for us in order?
Yeah. How long do we have?
That's the rest of the cast, guys. Just so, and look, I remember that, and I know that the group has always had a really fond memory of Dead of Winter.
Yes.
I love that you chucked me in there, but I never played that. So thanks for
when I say I was referring to more that group of friends, which you're in there, but you just never went.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate it. Thanks. So yeah, it's not a game I played a lot of, but I do. You've always spoken really highly of it. So when you were jumping on BGG, and this is just out of curiosity, what were some of the top games that were on that, if you remember?
Number one game on there was Twilight Struggle at the time.
Okay, yep.
So Twilight Struggle was number one, and I was like, oh, number one must be the best game ever. And I was at that stage where, you go to the video shop and you go, wow, that movie looks cool. You always turn it over and you look at the pictures on the back and you're like, oh, this looks terrible. I don't read what it's about. This is me growing up as a child into a teenager. I'm like, no, that looks terrible. That was like board games. So I'd pick up, and a lot of people may know, is it Days of Wonder? I can't remember. Five Tribes. Five Tribes is a brilliant game. You ever look at the back of that and you show anyone who doesn't play games, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess, and it doesn't look like fun at all. So looking at Twilight Struggle, I was looking at images of it. This thing looks boring as hell. It looks like something my dad would play. It looks like Railway Tycoon or something. It just looked terrible. And I was just like, maybe not all games are like good for me. So then I started to look into, all kind of genres I might like and, aesthetics, and a lot more of the modern ones have a lot more put into the artwork and components. But there was that. So Twilight Struggle was up there. I think Agricola was still up there, somewhere relatively high. And this is before games like Feast for Odin and Terraforming Mars. And I think Twilight Imperium had its third edition at the time, I think. But those are the sort of games that are there. Jeez, I can't really remember now. I know Eldritch Horror is in there. I'm pretty sure that's fallen out. Arkham Horror was pretty big at the time. And some of these are the more prominent games that I remember being around during that stage.
Just for the record, have you ever played Twilight Struggle?
No, I downloaded it on Steam or on my phone or on an iPad or something. And there's, I think, a tutorial in there to teach you. And I think I fell asleep. And it's one of those games that I want to play. I just haven't gotten across the hurdle of playing it. For sure.
Yep. No, everyone has those games, those movies, those type of.
I know if I did, I think I'd like it.
Well, it's a 2-player game, right? So that's the limiting factor, especially in today's games, is that pulling out something. You've got to have two people. It's not we've got 4 or 5 people over, so that's not going to see play at a game day. So
no, it's like cardboard Star Wars Rebellion, right?
Exactly. So, cool. And so thinking about like from that point to now, which is quite a long time, and as you said, 800 board games later, what would be three of your favorite games? The ones that kind of have either been the most enjoyable or sit in your heart the most, like that you really, if you were like, yeah, you know what, these are three of my favorite games.
Okay. So for the longest time, I was into co-ops. So Dead of Winter, which was a semi-co-op, they had a little twist in there. I was very big on dungeon crawlers and very big on co-op. Hey, friends, because I didn't believe that I was very good at games. So when you go in as a team environment, let's all win together or fail together. And over time, with our group of friends, I really started to appreciate competitive games. And I started to they were more fun because you can just crap talk across the table, right? Give each other a lot of grief. You can get into each other's way. And it was at that stage where I was like, oh, if I don't win, I don't win. Like I had to win. But that was deciding the kind of games I liked. And I discovered I really liked area control. I really, really liked the idea of having a faction. If it's asymmetric, even better, where my power is this. Oh, you can do what? Like things like that. So I started to get into area control games. I started to get into Blood Rage and Kemet and all these sort of area control games, which I found really interesting. And there was the granddaddy of area control games, at least for me, which I went to Mind Games in Melbourne CBD. And I spent 300, I think about 300 AUD, 280 or 300 on the core box of Cthulhu Wars. And this had, on the side, it says miniatures this big and it's got a little scale. And it's like, whoa, that's as big as my hand. And I was like, let's get this. Took it home, opened it up. Seemed relatively straightforward, but the pieces were very big and we never ended up playing it. Anyway, we ended up playing it, just a 3-player, me, Will, and Jamie, and it was amazing. And since then, I went on to the third Kickstarter where they brought out all the factions because I was like, there's maps, there's factions, there's all these additional stuff. And that just easily became one of my favorite games. And to this day, it still is. Now, I would never play this at 8 again because I've done that multiple times. I don't have time for that. I don't mind a long game. Which is the next game I'm going to say. But yeah, Cthulhu Wars is definitely my favorite. It's honestly best at about 4 to 5 people. Area control, asymmetric factions, really clean rules, lots of dice, all the things that I love. It's such a spectacular game, and I've only won it once out of dozens of plays. So I'm garbage at it, but I won. Second game, Twilight Imperium 4th edition. I finally got around to playing Twilight Imperium. I've had 3rd edition forever, and I'd never played it. And one of the gaming groups that I made last year, they made a suggestion of playing it, and I was like, damn, I really want to play this. And until that stage, Eclipse would have taken this spot easily. But I played Twilight Imperium, and I've never looked back. If I had to rank all my games in order, this is my number 1 game of all time, easily. And I've only played it 6 times. And that was 6 times last year. Such a good game. I've won 4 of them too.
Yeah. There's a slight caveat there that when you've got almost 100% win rate with a game, and that game takes 10 to 15 hours with our gaming group. So even though you've only played 6 games, we've probably spent 60 plus hours playing it. So yeah, it's probably more than you've played any other game.
Pretty much. But easily Twilight Imperium 4th edition. It's a area control, lots of factions, so much diplomacy, so much backstabbing. Just breaking deals, making deals, and then a whole bunch of kingslaying at the end. Oh, it's just so good. And I would play that every weekend if I had the opportunity. And then the last game is actually a couple games, something I play with Calvin, who's our Bone Shaper. We don't play as many games anymore, but if there's one game that we've always liked, it was actually Feast for Odin. So this is one of the UA Rosenberg. It's the one that came after, like the major one that came after Agricola and Caverna. It's the Viking-themed one with all the polyomino pieces. I love that game. It is just so cool. If I don't want interaction, because the game's it's worker placement, that game just gives you so much freedom to do whatever you want and play however you want. And even if you're not super interactive with the other person, it's such a good 2-player game, but it would play real well at 3 or 4. I think it's just a brilliant Euro. And I think that'll about round it up easily.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess from those you've got, I mean, your 2 area control games, right? I mean, Twilight Imperium kind of ticks a whole bunch of boxes of what it is.
Yeah.
It's like an everything game.
like it's kind of Cthulhu Wars was number one for me. Twilight Imperium, then when I finally got to play it, took over. So Cthulhu Wars is not seeing as much play, but I think I can get a quicker game of it. But if I had a choice between the two, I'd pick Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, okay. And so thinking about then what mechanics in games do you prefer? Like what?
I like randomness, whether it be through cards or through dice. I really there are games out there like I don't know, chess, that I don't like it when things are too deterministic and you have to outsmart people. Actually, another good one's Food Chain Magnate, which I love the idea of, and mechanically I think it's brilliant, but it is so cutthroat from a deterministic point of view that I don't like that, because I don't think I'm not going to say I'm dumb, but I don't think I have the brain capacity to think too many rounds ahead and think like that. I need a dice to sometimes determine the outcome of a conflict or a card draw, something like that. I like that. It's like event decks in the expansions of Spirit Island that added that extra, you have no idea what's coming, we're going to mix things up. So anything that does that, I definitely love. I do like a bit of worker placement. Definitely like anything that's area control, as I said, or what we call dudes on a map. And there's another area majority. So just any of those ones, anything that's very conflict heavy and very fighty, a lot of take that. I actually really like. I don't get very butthurt over those kind of things. If your next question is what I don't like, I was about to launch into that. So I'm sorry.
No. Well, not necessarily. Just to stay on the mechanics you do like. So, if you were thinking about those type of mechanics, what are your favorite games in those spaces? I know you've talked obviously outside
Imperium.
of the ones. Yeah, well, okay. Outside of the ones you've already said are your favorite. Thinking about those other mechanics, like worker placement, obviously Feast of Odin. But what else do you like in that space?
In worker placement, Sandy Peterson, who recently, I mean, he is one of my favorite designers, but lately with all the Kickstarter kerfuffles that have been happening lately, it's kind of like, he's got a game called Evil High Priest that not a lot of people know about, and I really love that as a worker placement game because that is the biggest FU worker placement game that I've played. I think I may have mentioned that actually in a past episode with Argent the Consortium as another bit of an FU. They're worker placement games with high interaction, high conflict, which I find really, really cool. But Agricola I like as well. And yeah, I'm just trying to think of some of the more recent worker placement games that I might have played recently, but
yeah,
nothing's really coming to me.
So not what games, but what mechanics don't you like?
Social deduction.
You love social deduction. You love people.
I love the idea of the Resistance and Secret Hitler and all of these social deduction games. I love the idea of them. I love watching other people play. I like watching people lie to each other and just watch them pull off the most amazing betrayals and little heists and just the psychological, I don't know, people watching. I love all that. When it comes to me doing it, I can't. I just can't. And I don't know. I think it might be a player or a group problem because if I played with a bunch of random people that I'd never met, I think that'd be okay. But my friends know me too well, and I apparently have 500 different tells. So the minute I am a good person of any game, like if I'm a liberal in Secret Hitler, I am very passionate, I'm very hardworking, I'm trying to solve the puzzle like everyone else. And I'm very social, I'm talking. I'm like, this person hasn't done this. The minute I'm a fascist, I go quiet. I'm very quiet, I'm very sulky, I'm very keeping to myself, and the minute someone even points in my direction, what Daddy's being very quiet over here, I'm just like, what? No, I'm not. And I start smacking the table, and I just get super weird. So yeah, that's why there's a game that might change that for me. It's called Blood on the Clock Tower. I'm waiting for the opportune time to play it. It's where I get to be the storyteller, and I get to literally set up the game and watch it unfold in front of me, which
that's cool.
Is going to be amazing. Cool. We're going to see that in Game Mania.
I know that was one of the reasons, and I think I talked about it a few episodes ago. Scapegoat is one of the ones that you play and you're happy to play a lot. Yeah. Because you don't have to lie.
No.
Because you don't know you're lying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's interesting. What's fascinating about that you explaining all that, and it makes 100% sense, right? Like some people don't like lying. I know there's been other games that people have played, or I know when Among Us we were playing that a lot. There was a few people that just like, no, I don't like it because I just don't like lying. It's interesting because when you play TI, for example, right, you will play and do your own agendas, come up with your own plans, agree to things, disagree. I don't think you've ever done any massive backstabbing things, although the 5-hour argument from Mangy would disagree with that. But that's the table that for another podcast.
Yeah.
But you do play in a way that would be very effective in a social deduction game, but I feel because it's not the game, it's everything. There's all these other things happening. You can hide behind it. Whereas in a game of Secret Hitler or anything like that, it's like, no, you are on the spot to do that because that's literally the only thing you're doing.
I think it's also, I think you're right. You're definitely right. I think it's in games like Twilight Imperium and all of that, I'm dictating if I'm good or bad, and I can change that as I'm going. I don't have a card telling me you're a bad guy and you're going to win if the bad guys finish their thing, because that's, and don't get caught. So if I, betray Bangy, or sorry, we have a miscommunication, I did the thing that he didn't want me to do, and I jump into his space and I have to hear about it for the next 5 hours while the whole table is looking at us awkwardly. I chose that. Right?
Yeah, you chose your path.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I didn't, it's just, it's how I feel about it. I feel like I can choose the path as opposed to it's being chosen for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And so other than social deduction, what's another mechanic that's prevalent?
Just quickly on social deduction, I did play one game of Dead of Winter where I got the betrayer, and I remember reading the red letters that went across the secret objective, and I was like, I got this. I can do this. These guys, like, they don't know me as well as my other group. And I was so good at pretending to be a good guy that the good guys won because I forgot to betray. I was so deep undercover that I helped way too much. But other mechanics, did you say?
Yeah, that just don't really do it for you.
Anything puzzly. So
specifically spatial puzzles?
All puzzles in space.
Oh, I see what you did there.
So, spatial puzzles, like games like Santorini, games that make me sort of do a Sudoku, like the Gemini. Anything that I find is too puzzly. Okay, escape room games are a good one. I do them sometimes in activity because I'm with people that want to do them. I don't really like doing them. I feel maybe it's a self-conscious thing. I don't like being tested on my intelligence or something like that. And I just find that sometimes if I'm given, a little puzzle to figure out, it's not as fun. It's just not fun for me. I don't get the reward out of it. And if anything, I get frustrated at myself because if I can't work something out, I'm just like, oh my God, I'd rather, I attack that guy, roll some dice. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's really interesting psychology when it comes to how hard you make a puzzle in anything, because like there's people will enjoy it because there's a challenge to a point, and then as soon as they get to that point, it's like a mountain, they just drop off a cliff, right? So it's like, oh, I'm enjoying this until I can't work it out, and now I want to have nothing to do with it,
Really?
and then I'm like, all my enjoyment's gone. So it is a challenge in general when you're trying to implement that into a game. I imagine there's probably a lot of people that are in the same place as you, just like, nah, no interest.
Yeah. And there are some games that do that. Mansions of Madness or something, they do an app. They run the game with an app, so the app actually narrates a lot of what's happening in the events and all that kind of stuff. Every now and then a puzzle comes up on the screen and you guys got to move these blocks in certain spots and all that. And I kind of immediately give that to Calvin and go, you do it. I don't even want to attempt this. So yeah, anything puzzly, just not my jam.
All right, we'll come back to some of those topics a little bit later. What I wanted to do is give you a chance to talk about the Drifter.
Uh-huh.
Right, I wanted to get a little bit
while
more
I still have it.
Well, while you still have it, yes, correct. I thought that we should get it now because otherwise, in a couple of episodes, once you're retired and it's no longer, all you'll remember was like, crushing weight. I think that's it. Was it the crushing weight character?
Well, the new character will be busted, and I won't be able to use them because I wouldn't have a clue how to, where's my crushing weight.
That's it. Well, you can just. I hear you're allowed to just take a card over. So,
oh wow.
So if we look at the Drifter, I guess to start off, what parts of the character are you enjoying the most?
I'd say the simplicity. I don't I like the simplicity of it, where I actually don't have to think too much of it about what I'm doing. In a way, it's kind of it's reliable, so I kind of know that I'm going to have always a +2, which means I'm always going to be hitting for at least 4 with any card I choose, right? And anything else is on top of that's great. So I like the fact that the cards are fairly straightforward. I did anyway at the start, right? I like the movement of the persistent abilities. I think that's really cool. I think that a whole class based around that is fairly cool. And after so many scenarios, you know, a little bit over that particular part. But if they keep throwing me new persistent toys to play with, that'll bring some life into it. I like the flexibility. The class is incredibly flexible, and there's many different ways of playing it. Whether or not you wanted to go down a ranged path, which is something that I'm seeing is more and more interesting as I see the next level cards every time I level up and go, oh, that's not really going to fit this. But if I was to re-roll this and play a ranged one, that'd be really cool. So just seeing how flexible it is to be able to play it in 2 different major ways, but also having the backup of, I can take a few hits, I can heal, you know, this person, that person, whatever. I do like a lot of that. I think that is just a very useful and consistent class for the game.
Yeah. I know we made a lot of jokes earlier that you were the jack of all trades, right? And
Yeah.
I'll then follow that with being not good at anything.
God, that feels like forever ago.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've dropped off of that. I think that from what I've seen you playing it, that's definitely true, because there's been some scenarios where I know you've kind of shifted a little bit, like you've been healing, you've been doing some range stuff, and then there was one where you just went straight into chuck down crushing weight and then just did this big burst of damage over a couple of turns to really like finish off some mobs and stuff at the end there. So yeah, that flexibility is definitely visible from someone not playing it.
Yeah.
Like, as I can see you doing different things.
Yeah.
And I think once now that you've kind of mastered the little DJing of the little tokens on your persistent abilities, I can see you kind of eking out these really good turns. Like, other than drawing your miss or your -2,
Yeah.
right? Your turns tend to be very effective. So, I mean, like you say, it's simple, but I think you're actually tuning it really well, which is obviously you've kind of got the hang of it. But it sounds like you're being able to do that consistently.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you 100% nailed it. It's just, it always feels nice and consistent. I think that's something that it's reliable, that you can bring it. Think of a niche class, like the Calvin's Bone Shaper. You're gonna have scenarios where it's kind of like, this is a bad scenario for you, right?
Yeah.
I never ever feel that,
Yeah.
like ever. I may make some questionable decisions with cards I bring, but I don't feel like I'm in a situation where I'm like, this is a bad scenario for me.
What's really interesting to see, and I'll be fascinated to see as we go through more of the classes in Frosthaven, is this the Drifter actually seems like it's legitimately a class that you could play in a completely different way. So, I mean, you've talked about range, and I've seen some of your ranged cards, your ranged persistent abilities. I know in Gloomhaven, there was a lot of classes that were like, that's if you want to play the ranged version, but it's always nowhere near as good. Like, it was, the ranged version of, I can't think of the names of the classes now, but those, and you're looking going like, I suppose you could make it work that way. Or here's the tanky version of that one. You're like, I guess if you don't use most of the core cards. But it looks like, outside of Crushing Weight, because we know how good that is, but it looks like most of the other cards would actually work really well together. Like, you'd be able to play a pretty fun, effective character.
I think so, theoretically. I think just from looking at them, I definitely would be worth giving it a shot. And there may be people out there who have crunched the numbers and gone, you know what? Yes and no. It's maybe 40% of it's a 40-60 ratio of the melee version being just clearly better. But by the end you do an extra 10 damage or something like that. But just knowing that you can add some variety to it, because some of the base starting cards in some of the range, they have muddle on them, which I don't really use anymore unless I absolutely need to. It's a ranged muddle targeting multiple things, or the ranged poison. And then there's ways to add targets to that and ways to beef up the damage and the range. And then there's more range cards, which I haven't bought yet or taken yet, that would just further enhance that. So, yeah, I definitely think it would be worth a shot. And as I said, if there was no new classes for me, I'd roll it again.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what are you not enjoying from a class perspective?
The simplicity. So a lot of what I said at the very start of the good things that I was enjoying, they're over time. So I'm getting it's becoming a little bit too consistent and predictable to the point where I kind of know what I'm doing all the time. You've always got your reliable, your PS cards. You've always got, I know I'm going to hit hard here. I know I can get in, top myself up here. I don't see the challenge anymore. I don't see a position. I just know what I can do, and I know the limitations of the class. It is simple, and it's very easy to pick up and play, and I think it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm just finding it a little bit on the dull side. So what I get to experience is my compadres, when they're talking about elements, I never get to get involved in that conversation. Because a lot of people are like, oh, Daddy, do you need any elements? What do you want? I'm like, no, I don't. It even says it on the back of my card. It just literally says none next to element affinities. I would love the idea, because that just having an element and knowing that you need it for certain things adds another element of depth to your character when it comes to timing, right? I don't really have any of these sort of timing issues other than make sure my discs don't fall off my persistent cards. That's kind of it. So yeah, I'm finding also I'm a little jelly, because when we level up, sometimes we go, whoa, look at this card. And we hand it across the table and Gaz reads it, and we all do that. When I level up, it's not as exciting. And I'm learning that the Drifter has a level 2 card. I think it's a level 2 or a level 3. And when I unlocked it, I was the melee version of the card was literally, hit 2 targets with an attack 2. And like they're opposite you. They're adjacent to each other, and they're just next to you to form like a little triangle. And I was like, huh. It took me half a second to look at the card and be like, oh yeah, I understand that whole card. Yeah, okay. And when you get a card, it's kind of like, whoa, I have to decipher this, and you can see the meme with all the maths equations flying across the screen. It's kind of like, whoa, how does this work? Oh, that's really interesting. And mine's just like, hey, you can hit these 2 guys for 2. And it's like, cool. I just want more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. Is I feel like a lot of people are getting a lot more choice. Like, honestly, when it comes to picking cards for our initiative and knowing what we're doing, I do that in 2 seconds, because I don't really have to think about it. It's me smash, me smash or me heal, and that's about it.
I think that happens with a lot of the classes that you get used to, where there isn't a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot of complexity, and I'm taking this from playing Gloomhaven a lot, in that you do get to know your deck, and you do get to know which cards are going to be, all right, I need to attack this, and I've got these 2 or 3 cards that attack, versus I need to move, I've got these, you got your go-to cards for that.
Yeah.
And it seems like the Drifter has just, that's all your go-to cards are there, and it's pretty straightforward to be able to go, okay, cool, well, I'll just use that one, I'll use this one. So, I mean, in saying that, when I get my level up cards, I have to read them and go, I don't really know how this works. So
right.
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, okay, that's true. Because I don't want to have a spatial puzzle in front of me.
Correct. So yeah, we'll see. So in saying that, because you are very close to retiring, you could basically retire after any scenario that we complete. Are you going to be okay with that?
With retiring?
Yep.
Yeah, I will. I'm looking forward to it okay, it's kind of weird. We discussed this last episode. It's kind of like there's a whole box of stuff there, and we can go through all that and have a look at all the classes and be like, oh, that's so exciting when that one comes out. Okay, I call dibs on that and all of that. We can do all that, which will be super exciting and fun at the time. But then we steal from the future's fun, right? Especially when we're delaying it as long as we are. Because we are this far in, we've made a podcast about it, and we only know 4 classes. So you get attached. You do actually get kind of attached to the character, because I don't know what else is out there. There's kind of, there's still more to discover with the Drifter. I want to see the level 9 cards. We don't, personally, and I know other people are probably cringing at this or like going, why? We don't even know what card comes next in our level up, because we just chose. It's not a rule or anything like that. It's just the excitement of leveling up. We don't know what we're about to unlock. So I'm 6. I have no idea what comes at level 7. I haven't looked ahead. So I do want to see what comes later, right, for the Drifter, because I want to see how far they take the Drifter's shtick, which is the persistent cards. Do they do something absolutely insane? Move it all across and kill 1 unit on the board, or something, I don't know, stupid like that. So, yeah.
Maybe that's something we can throw to the group about a variant, and that when you retire, if you want, you can have a peek at
Why
the
not?
extra cards.
Definitely. I don't see why not, especially if you don't think you'll play it again or whatever reason. Like, yeah, I don't see why not, honestly.
Just so that you don't have to go, because they're retired, I'll never know what those are. Because that's, for me, that's probably where it's at. I mean, I've just recently discovered fire, so now it's like a whole new class. And so I'm pretty pumped again. But I was kind of getting to that stage where I'm like, yeah, I could go retirement, but now I'm keen on seeing what the rest comes. So, okay. And for any first-time drifters out there, so if anybody hasn't played the class and they're about to pick it up, or they do soon, what advice have you got for them for starting level 1, 2, 3, something like that, like to skip all the mistakes that you made?
Oh, I think that a lot of people who haven't started one, if they don't have one in the group, they'd probably by now, just due to the community and like the feeling of it, will have an idea of what it can kind of do. Like, I don't know if it's just guessing, but we have an idea that the blink blade's a little dude that blinks around and stabs things, right? Which and then Banner Spear just sounds super defensive, paladin-y, I don't know, right? Helpful.
And the drifter sounds like a homeless dude.
Yeah, well, I guess the drifter does sound a bit different. I mean, you get a little tiny blurb or a bit of information about them in the rule book, right? I don't know whether or not any advice is actually needed for the drifter other than the simple mechanics mistakes that we made at the start. Like forgetting to use my persistent cards because I was so used to move and attack, right? And not realizing that maybe we need a bit of prep beforehand. So I think most people who, if you're going to pick it up later in the game because you've already retired something and you really want to pick it up, like I don't think you can really make a mistake with it, to be honest. I think it falls into that category of something that you can just get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then last question, because it might become relevant, so it'd be good to almost get a forecast and then see how this lines up. But what do you want out of your next class? What kind of things are you looking for? If you're getting a little bit stale with what you're doing, what kind of character would you like?
I actually have a mini. I only just thought of this because we know nothing about the new classes. This is kind of mixed in with it. I'm just going to put it out there. If you think there's a class that suits me and my personality from listening to it, let me know. We've got a Snowflake, we've got a Trap, we've got a Banner Spear, and a Blink Blade. That's my choices. So if I retire next week, one of those is going to be the options. If you think one of them screams Daddy and you're going to want to say, yeah, I want him to pick that, to play that for the next however long, because it will suit my personality or, I don't know, play style, suggest it. And I might even pick that one moving forward. But I guess,
if you want to troll Daddy and give him the Geminate 2, which is he doesn't know about, and you know he's going to hate it because it's basically one big spatial puzzle, do that as well, but say it would be great for him because then we can get to watch him from across the table just be like, I hate whoever it was that suggested this.
Yeah, and then you can host it with Phil from now on with the podcast moving forward because I'll just want nothing to do with it. But mechanically, I don't know. I don't know. I've told, because Phil and I have had this discussion. I don't know whether or not. Okay, trap class obviously has got traps, right? I think.
Well, without trying to figure out what the other classes do, let's break this down to be a bit easier.
Okay.
Melee ranged.
I'll probably want to go ranged. Yeah, I think I want to go ranged with just to mix it up. Just because I've been in the faces of so many things, I wouldn't mind the feeling of trying to calculate range and line of sight again.
Yeah, I love calculating range. And I'm just going to steal a bunch of Dota terms here, but core or support?
Ooh, I'd probably go support, to be honest. I think a support would be really cool. I think right now we've got you and Phil, super cores, right? Like, I would love to be able to find a way to enable Phil even further, if that was even possible.
More shadows.
If I could learn to poop, I would do that for him.
You just become a shadow, so
yeah. So yeah, I think a range support of some kind.
Okay.
Would be really cool, but not like Tinkerer.
Pets or no pets?
A pet, maybe a pet, but it's not completely crucial to the play style. Just something really minor that I can throw out every now and then. Sure, that.
So you're like, I like animals, but I just want one.
Just
I'm
one.
I don't want 12.
No.
I just want one.
I don't want to manage an army, but I also don't want to be like, I can't do anything, guys, that I have a pet out. So I don't want to be that reliant on it. I want to have the option of going, yeah, I'll throw this one out and it can do a little bit of something. And then if it goes away, I don't really care.
Cool. And I mean, this probably goes with the range support kind of thing, but tanky or squishy?
Me or the pet?
We'll go with you, okay?
Let's go squish.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. So what we're looking for is we
What
want
kind of question is that? Like, I don't understand that.
with a pet.
Why would anyone want squishy?
Because some people like don't like the idea of if you're a tanky character, then you got tanky cards, which
There
means
are
that you do need to.
expectations, right?
Yeah, like if you got all these shield cards, then you're like, no, I'm gonna sit in the corner and not do any of that.
No.
It kind of is a bit rude.
No,
So
sit in the corner.
all right, so just so anybody knows any of the ones we've got, Daddy's looking for a range squishy support with a pet. All right, that's what he's after.
Optional pet.
Optional. Okay, optional.
pet.
Doesn't have to be a core pet. So very good. Is there anything else on the drifter or where the drifter's at that you wanted to talk about in regards to Frosthaven before we move on to the last kind of segment I've got?
I have enjoyed a lot of time with it. I really have. I think if I retire it, I will actually miss it a lot. Just because, like I said, it's Mr. Reliable. The drifter is just such a reliable character class. It has a super high healthy pool. I like the fact that even if I'm in the wrong spot and I get crit, it's hilarious. We all laugh and I go, oh no, I just took 10 damage. I mean, it's not a one shot like it might be to some others. And I just say, yeah, I'll take that. I'll just heal myself back up. You know? I do like that I can sort of, I laugh in the face of danger and all of that. I like the fact that I've got some built-in Pierce cards to deal with the shielding. So the minute I feel like I've got a job and actually multiple jobs. I like a lot of that. I think the drifter is a really, really, really good starting class, especially for someone who's not as experienced with the world of Frosthaven, Gloomhaven.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree. If you had someone that was new and knowing the 4 classes we've seen, the drifter would be the one that I give them. Yeah. And again, I don't like the idea of talking about it from a simplicity perspective just because of that, but it kind of almost highlights the key elements of the game. It gets you good at the key pieces that you need to really know: the movement, the attacking, it's got the persistent abilities, it's got sunburn cards, it's got some healing. I feel like if you were going to play one class to start with and that was it, and then you had like a variety of classes to pick next, you'd almost go be like, you know what, I've got a pretty good snapshot of what the game looks like.
Yeah.
Whereas if you played the Gemini or the Deathwalker, or even the Bone Shaper, I feel like you'd be like, I know like a niche part of how the game works, but I have no idea how I'm supposed to do everything else.
I think they've done a phenomenal job of creating 6 starting classes. Now we only know 4, but really giving such great variety in the playstyles and the complexity, so that they haven't just gone, oh, you're all gonna feel super easy and startery, right? You've got the Gemini, you've got the Deathwalker. I mean, I'm still puzzled by how that works, right? But Phil's got a handle on that. You get the Bone Shaper. I don't know how the other 2 go, but it's nice that they've got that so that any group can jump in and there's something for everyone.
Yeah, for sure. All right, cool. Well, thanks for that. That's very insightful, and heaps of stuff that I didn't really know about either, because we talk about this in bits and pieces. So it's good to kind of get that out. And it sounds like you're ready to retire. So I guess
don't say that. It just sounds sad. Like you're just shooting me out into space.
No, ready to retire just means that you're willing to accept it if it comes along. You're not rushing it, right? But you're just like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy my time. And when it comes along, I'm at peace, right? Like you got good zen.
I'm just talking out loud right now, but if I had to retire, is you make a new character up to the level of our prosperity, right? Or something like that.
I don't know. We have to read the rules.
Yeah, I have to read the rules
before
because our prosperity is level 2. I would have to start level 2. That's going to give us a weird kind of balancing with the level kind of thing, especially if I find a squishy range dude with an optional pet. It's going to be interesting.
Well, that's how it works. That's one of the things that I think the game works the best at is when you are starting characters around level 2, 3, maybe 4 at most, because you get to experience most of the characters. And having a slight level like gap, it does mean you have to play the character a bit differently as well.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be interesting, and we'll definitely have to read the rules and then read them again.
Yep.
So very good. Cool. Well, the last thing that I wanted to discuss with you is in the next segment is do a quiz. I'm gonna throw a quiz at you, and it's gonna be a lightning round.
Continuous health.
It's not gonna be a drifter quiz, okay? Right? Because I know that that's just that's the answer. So this is the lightning round. So I'm going to fire a few questions at you, not that many, but I just want you to just first response that comes to your head.
No. Okay.
All right, so you don't have to elaborate. I'll elaborate for you.
I'll try not to, because sometimes I just start talking. So just cut me off.
I'll just cut you off. All right, cool. Faction color. What's your preference?
Purple.
And what if purple isn't available?
Pink.
Okay, they're basically the same color. What if one of those isn't available?
How is this a rapid fire question? Like, I gave you the answer. I gave you a second answer, and you're still going with this.
Well, because if we're playing a game that has like the 4 primary colors, which usually is not pink or purple.
They're awful. Like, I hate that. If I'm very reluctant, I would reluctantly pick yellow because no one wants yellow. Phil wants red, you want green. I know that much. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. Luck versus no luck. What's your
luck.
preference?
Million times luck. Do you want me to go into why? No. Okay.
Dice versus cards.
I'll probably go dice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably go dice.
Favorite TI faction.
I'm probably gonna go Argent Flight.
Cool. And now I will let you say why. Tell us why.
Oh, they're bird people, and they specialize because a lot of them specialize with different ships. They have different units, right? And they tweak them a little bit. So their special ship are destroyers, and their destroyers have almost like a rocket barrage thing that just unloads, and they get to reroll, and they get to add extra dice. And at the beginning of a fight, sometimes they will end the fight in the first round. And I just distinctly remember going into a fight with like Will for Mechatol Rex, and I brought a bunch of those in, and it was just so one-sided. It was brilliant, only because I planned for it. But they're bird people as well. Like, it's like you and grass.
Exactly. Like, are birds your thing?
No, they're not.
Okay.
I'm just birds eat grass.
Oh dear. So maybe a bit niche, but do you have a favorite dice? Like die type?
Oh, I'd probably say D6. Like, I think. Oh no, Twilight Imperium has D10s. All right, we'll go D10. And actually, KDM has D10 as well.
I think a lot of things are using D10s now.
Are they?
Like they're using them as for randomness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, interesting. So to slow it down a little bit more, apart from Gloomhaven, what game do you think you've gotten the most playtime out of? I'll also remove TI from that, just because like we've probably played 100 hours of that and only like 6 games.
It would be like a smallish kind of partyish kind of game, really. We've played like a lot of cockroach poker, like those kind of games.
So much of that. Oh god, that's like the in between game when it's up really late. We haven't decided what next to play, but we play it for like 3 hours.
Yeah. And the thing about cockroach poker, if anyone's ever heard of it, is a bluffing game where you throw cards at each other and you bluff, right? It's super raw bluffing at its finest. It is amazing. And we have one person in our group that we've mentioned the name many times. His name's Mangy. And if you give him a card, he takes it as an attack, and he will then throw every other card at you to try and get you like to bluff you. So if you,
it's only if you win a trick off him.
Yeah.
It's if you trick him. So if you either get him to, then he's just like, you have my aggro, and I'm gonna go at you, and you can't even. And again, for those who've played it or those who haven't, when you get given a card, you can choose not to look at it, so you can kind of not engage with him, and you can pass it. But until he beats you, he's like, no, I'm not. So you can pass off these cards all the time, and it doesn't matter because he's still going at you.
So in these giant games of it, you see him lock onto someone, everyone puts their cards down and just watches because it's not coming back.
The amount of games of that I've just sat there and watched like someone get demolished by Mangy is it's hilarious. So what about bigger games? What else do you reckon you've spent a lot of time on?
because this is the issue. A lot of people track their games and their plays and all that kind of stuff. And I started doing that a little bit. I could look that up and have a look, but like I've definitely played quite a few games of Cthulhu Wars. I have a very, very large collection, so I don't give a lot of games so many players because it's sometimes, especially in this climate, it's really hard. And because of COVID, it's really hard to all catch up and be able to play like we used to. We're all a lot time poor, and everyone's got young families coming through now, so it's a bit harder. But that is Cthulhu Wars is one that I would say has come out. I've actually played a fair bit of John Company second edition recently, which is I really, really like. I don't know if it's landing with some of the friends that we've got as much, but I personally love it.
I reckon one we've played a decent amount, Spirit Island.
Spirit Island, definitely good one. You, me, and Calvin have played that a fair bit, and we get a lot of enjoyment out of that. That's one that's every single time we've played that, it's been really, really enjoyable. Love a good spatial puzzle.
I reckon that's a game that I could play every weekend. Like if there was a Spirit Island game going, like if we had a 3-hour block that we would catch up once a week and play Spirit Island, I reckon I could do that for a really long time. It's such a good game.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see well with that.
All right, cool. Let's go a bit further in. So, what's your biggest disappointment from a highly anticipated game?
Oh, I don't really think I've kind of got one because I kind of know what I'm getting.
Well, you've never bought a game and been like, "This isn't as good as I wanted it to be."
I guess
highly anticipated can be you anticipating it.
I anticipate everything to be somewhat like fun and enjoyable. There's a joke that's going on right now. So there's a game that came out a while back called Intrepid. Intrepid is probably still available. I personally think that mechanically the games are really, really, really good. Really good. I hate it because it's a puzzle game, a co-op puzzle game with dice and dice manipulation, and I just can't stand that thing, and it's just become a joke. But that's the only game that I've ever said I strongly dislike, and yet I think the game mechanically is fine. So I've had games
15 episodes. That's how long the pool is up. How long would it be before Deddy started his mini rant on why he hates that game?
It arrived. I took a photo and put it on my Instagram a long time ago, my personal one, and I was like, "Oh, this looks really, really good." You got these different countries and space station and all of that. Thematically, the components, the dice, just everything that went into it. And when I played it, I was like, "Oh, I'm just sorting out how to change my die faces and then lock them into a thing." Oh, it just fell so flat with me. It just sucks so much. And yet, like, you thought it was fine, and Calvin thought it was fine. It's not like you guys are champing at the bit to play it more, but, I just hated it. I just hated every moment of it. So I think that's 100% me.
It has flaws, but I think if like I was over and Calvin or yourself, which you wouldn't, but said, "Hey, do you want to have a game of Intrepid?" I wouldn't say no. Like, I think it's fine. It's got elements of... I 100% understand, but it's got elements that are not fun, but that can wait for our Intrepid podcast.
God.
Okay, cool. All right, so nothing's really fallen flat. So
I don't think so.
You've been either whelmed by everything that you've purchased.
I think so.
Played.
Yeah, I actually think I can say that. I definitely have some games that I don't think... I've got games that I have never unwrapped and probably never will, and they're not exactly like super collector's items or anything like that. They're just more things that, as a lot of gamers, board gamers who get into the hobby, they go nuts at the beginning. They always go nuts. And everyone's like, "Oh, I'm really discovering this world, and I'm getting this. Throw me recommendations." And they go into a game shop and I'll have that. That looks cool. That looks cool. And that was me. So I have a lot of those kind of games that I bought that I'm like never got around to playing and don't really intend to now, but they're part of a collection. So I'll wait and see what to do with those.
Which of your games comes to mind when you think of the best components? And it could be a Kickstarter super duper exclusive, but which one do you think just like has the best components?
I'm going to go with Too Many Bones. So Too Many Bones by Chip Theory Games. They have a reputation of releasing really good, how do I put this? Environmentally friendly, because the whole game is made of plastic, basically.
I remember when we first played that, I was like going to shuffle the cards because you can talk about that, and you're like, yeah, they're all made out of this thing, and it's like you're like you could play in the bathtub. I'm like, I feel like that being a feature of a board game is a really weird feature, interesting, but still very weird.
Yeah, everything in that game. The chips are premium, and everything's neoprene, and the cards are, I don't know, PVC or something. It's a weird kind of.
So hard to shuffle.
They're very smooth. And then just so much dice. And I think it definitely has a very premium feel to it because there's not one piece of paper. I think even the rulebook is perhaps that same texture as the cards.
Yeah,
almost.
the reference cards.
The reference cards, everything.
Yeah, they are.
Literally,
yeah.
Minus maybe the box it comes in, you can play it in the bathtub. And I highly recommend it. It keeps the game clean.
In the bathtub?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
But I would say
Very
that component-wise, I think it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I've definitely dabbled in a lot of deluxe Kickstarters. But that one there is probably one that definitely stands out for me from its components because there's not one bad component in there that I can think of.
Also a very good game.
Very good game. Love the game.
I really did enjoy that. All right. Top 3 designers. Now, I'm just going to caveat here. You could make up names and I would have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to let you go.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got Hanny Mc. No, I can't even make it up if I wanted to. See, I can't lie.
No,
I can't
because you
bluff.
can't lie. Actually, that's I would 100% tell if you're lying because I can see you. So yeah.
Okay.
Who are your top 3?
So personally,
Not in any order.
Due to my love of Cthulhu Wars, I will say Sandy Peterson. Sandy Peterson, who did Cthulhu Wars, he also brought out Glorantha, the Gods War, which is almost a reskin of Cthulhu Wars. So the idea of having Cthulhu Wars, but with a whole bunch of new factions, right? New board, slightly tweaked rule set, and all of that is amazing. So I barely have touched that because I haven't really done Cthulhu Wars enough justice. Because every time we play it, I still play fairly raw with it without all the expansions as much as I'd like to, because I still am getting so much enjoyment out of the base game. He also did the Evil High Priest. He's got a bunch of stuff coming that I'm waiting for. Oh, he also did a co-op game called Planet Apocalypse, which I actually have, and it's a co-op game, and I think you might like it. So I might have to give that out for you. It's very, very, very cool. It's kind of like Cthulhu Wars, but co-op style, but you have your own individual hero and waves of creatures that are coming and roll dice and all sorts of stuff. Very cool. So I think you might like it. Lots of plastic. So much plastic. He's got Hyperspace coming, which has been touted as a 4X game. So it's a 4X game, but distilled down from your big granddaddy Twilight Imperiums, distilled down to an hour and a half, 2 hours, which I don't know if it's a thing, but he claims it's a thing. Yeah. And it becomes like a 6X game for us. So I'm looking forward to that, but that's unbelievably late. All right, unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a good 2 years late. And then, so that's Sandy Peterson. I love his stuff because, I mean, if no one knew, Sandy Peterson, I believe, was one of the designers of Doom.
Oh, really?
Yes. Sorry.
Oh,
one of the original, either he was on the team or something like that. He's got a big video games background as well.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Number 2.
Oh, sorry. So number 2, I'll go with Reiner Knizia. So he's a big favorite with a lot of people. He's a doctor. All right. So Dr. Reiner Knizia. He's made games such as Ra, which is an auction game. Modern Art. So he did Modern Art, which is another auction game. He's very, very big with his auction trilogy with Modern Art, Medici, and Ra. So I love a lot of what his stuff. He did Tigers and Euphrates and Yellow and Yangtze. He's done there's a new version of the Yellow and Yangtze coming out, which I did back. And I just recently got the deluxe edition of Ra, which came out recently. I'm looking forward to maybe getting a game of that tomorrow with the other group. So I like his games because I think he's just unbelievably clever. I think he's a mathematician genius or whatever. And he's just the way he balances his games and comes up with the simplest of mechanics, right? The rule sets are so clean, but the games are so meaty and just very, I don't know, you get a lot of bang for your buck with him.
Yeah, he's the one that you always be like, yeah, it's another one by this guy.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I keep saying
it's
Reiner Knizia.
completely different to the other games that he does. But that's one thing, yeah, I agree with. They have really tight rule sets. And that's one thing from a design perspective I love. It's when you can make something like really complex and like have deep kind of decisions, but super simple to play, right? So I think that's really cool.
I think the third one is probably a few different people that I can think of from. I'm gonna go with a tie, if that's okay. Only because I haven't played too many of their games, but I like what I've played of theirs so far. One of them is called Whirly. He's responsible for PAX Premier Second Edition and John Company Second Edition, 2 games that I absolutely love. He also, I believe, helped co-design Root. What was that, Patrick?
Oh, okay.
Patrick Lena, Cole Whirly. I have to double check that. I think he did. Post-production Teddy's going to jump in if I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure do it. So yeah, very amazing designer with a brilliant brain, and I love what he does. He's also a super top guy, and when I see him in YouTube videos, either doing a tutorial on his game on how to play it, or he's just doing a Q&A or anything like that, he seems like such a top bloke. I really like him a lot. The other one is going to be Eric Lang. So Eric Lang was probably one of my first loves, and he designed Blood Rage. And he designed Rising Sun. So Blood Rage was the first game of his that I played. He did Rising Sun. He did Arcadia Quest, which I still hold dear as one of my favorite games that I have not played in about 5 years. And a lot of my friends probably still haven't played it, and I'm dying to play it with them because I love that game so much.
Rising Sun?
Ankh.
That's right.
So Ankh's the Egyptian one. Yeah. So yeah, I love, again, I think his designs, I think he's just lately been a little bit more hit and miss with me personally.
Yeah.
But
cool.
that trilogy, that mythology trilogy that he did, brilliant.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, I think that's a pretty good wrap up of
Isaac Childress. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I kind of did caveat all of the questions with apart from Gloomhaven, but of course that's the one that has us all sitting here.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah.
It's hard because it's and when I was writing this and coming up with these ideas, I originally just had what game do you think you got most time out of? But when you play a game that has 150 scenarios and you're spending 2 to 3 hours per scenario, if you don't have to repeat any of them, like that's just going to instantly be the top play game, right?
And recording a podcast.
Pardon? And yes, correct. So instantly that just becomes something that you're keen on playing, because if the game was garbage, then you wouldn't play it for like 1,000 hours. So very good. Well, look, that's it. So hopefully you've enjoyed.
That was not that bad. I'm okay with this. Thank you.
You're okay?
Yeah,
okay.
That's all right.
All right. You survived?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, this is just the testing. So when we do
We're not live?
No, but there'll be a part 2, and then I'll know the level of questions that you're okay with, so I can ramp it up to turn it up to 11.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we don't find any crabs and all that kind of stuff, at episode 50, I'll be like, so Gaz, we're going to interview about the Gemini. This is the second interview because you still haven't.
Still can't find crabs. So look, hopefully you've enjoyed me hosting, because I don't think Daddy's going to let me do it again. So it's been fun. It's been fun being on the other end of things and asking the questions. But I think probably next week we'll go back to me not having to do any prep or thinking and just answering the questions as we fly through. I love
not doing work. It's great.
I feel like, unfortunately, if we both don't do any work, this will probably be a bit of a train wreck.
We need an AI to create the show notes for us.
That's true. And then we can get an AI to do the voices for both of us, and then we don't have to do anything, right?
And play the game for us.
That's it. So, all right. Well, look, thanks for joining us on another episode of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I have been your host, Gaz, and Deddy.
Do I do that last bit? How do you do it? It's if you're if you're not down with that, we've got 2 words for you. Sorry.
Remember, when it comes to rolling terribly.
Yeah. Remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in the wrist.